Welcome back to our BCBA mock exam channel. Let me start with a simple question. You've probably seen the term BCBA everywhere, on job postings, in ABA programs, maybe even in conversations with colleagues. But if someone asked you to explain exactly what it means, could you do it clearly? And more importantly, could you explain it in a way that actually reflects what a BCBA does, not just what the letters stand for? Because here's the reality, this is one of the most commonly asked questions in the field, and at the same time, one of the most misunderstood. So in this lesson, we're not just defining BCBA. We're going to break it down in a way that gives you clarity, what it means, what the role actually involves, and why it matters professionally. By the end, you should be able to explain it confidently, like a behavior analyst, not just repeat the acronym. Now, let's think about why this question comes up so often. You'll see BCBA in job descriptions, in training programs, and across different clinical settings. It's used so frequently that people assume they understand it, but often they don't. And this creates a gap between exposure and understanding. From a teaching perspective, this is important. Just because a term is common does not mean it is conceptually clear. So when someone searches, what is a BCBA, what they're really asking is not just for a definition, they're asking for meaning in context. That's what we're going to build step by step. This confusion doesn't happen by accident. First, the acronym itself is not intuitive. BCBA doesn't immediately tell you what the role involves. Second, if you search online, you'll find multiple explanations, some technical, some simplified, and some incomplete. Third, the role of a BCBA can look different depending on the setting. A BCBA in a clinic may look very different from one in a school or organization. And finally, when you're new to ABA, the concepts themselves take time to understand. So what we're really doing here is moving from confusion to clarity, and that requires both definition and application. Let's start with the formal definition. BCBA stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. Now, that's the full name, but that alone is not enough. A BCBA is a professional certification issued by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, or BACB. This means it's not just a title, it represents a verified level of competence. It is also internationally recognized, which means the credential carries professional weight across different countries and settings. So when you hear BCBA, you should not think of it as just a label. You should think of it as a credentialed professional role with defined standards and responsibilities. Now let's unpack what a BCBA actually does at a deeper level. A BCBA applies principles of behavior analysis, which means they use scientifically established relationships between behavior and environment. They rely on scientific foundations, meaning decisions are based on empirical evidence, not intuition. They design behavior interventions, which are structured plans to change behavior in a measurable way. They use data to guide decisions, which means they don't rely on guesswork. Every decision is based on observable and measurable outcomes. And importantly, they follow ethical guidelines and professional standards, which ensure that all interventions are both effective and responsible. So if you combine all of that, a BCBA is not just someone who works with behavior, they are someone who analyzes, designs, and evaluates behavior change using scientific and ethical frameworks. Let's now translate that definition into actual workflow. A BCBA typically follows a cycle: assess, plan, and analyze. First, they conduct assessments, which means identifying behavior patterns and understanding why behavior occurs. Then they design intervention plans, which are tailored strategies to change behavior based on that assessment. Next, they analyze data, meaning they continuously evaluate whether the intervention is working. And they also supervise implementation, ensuring that the plan is carried out correctly. This is not a one-time process, it's a continuous cycle. So the key idea here is that a BCBA is constantly moving between understanding behavior and improving outcomes through data-driven decisions. This slide helps clarify what falls within a BCBA's scope of practice. Behavior assessment involves systematically evaluating behavior patterns. Behavior change programs involve implementing structured interventions. Data-based decision-making ensures that all adjustments are guided by measurable outcomes. and supervision ensures that interventions are implemented with fidelity. The important teaching point here is that all of these areas are connected by one central goal: behavior change. So the scope of practice is not a list of tasks, it's a system of responsibilities that work together. This slide is extremely important because it addresses misconceptions. A BCBA is not just a therapist. They are analysts, supervisors, and program designers. They are not limited to working with children, they work across the lifespan in many settings. They do not guess behavior, they use database decision-making, which is a core principle in ABA. And they are not limited to one environment, they can work in schools, clinics, homes, and even organizational settings. From an exam perspective, this matters because questions often test whether you understand the scope and limitations of the role. So knowing what a BCBA is not helps define what it actually is. Now let's go deeper into why certification actually matters. Certification ensures professional standards, meaning there is a consistent level of competence across practitioners. It maintains ethical and clinical excellence, which protects both clients and professionals. It supports evidence-based interventions, meaning strategies are grounded in research, not opinion. It improves outcomes because decisions are guided by data and refined over time. And it creates career opportunities, opening access to advanced roles and settings. So certification is not just a requirement, it's a system that ensures quality, accountability, and effectiveness in practice. So if we bring everything together, a BCBA is not just a title, but it's a professional role defined by scientific thinking, ethical responsibility, and data-driven decision-making. Understanding this clearly helps you avoid common misunderstandings, build a strong conceptual foundation, and take the next step in your professional journey. And if you want to go beyond understanding and actually start applying this knowledge in exam-style scenarios, you can practice with full mock exams at www.bcbamockexam.com. Because at the end of the day, success in this field is not about memorizing definitions, it's about thinking like a behavior analyst.